As many of you know, those of you who have heard both Alberto and I speak with you, we both are avid students and practitioners of A Course in Miracles. We have been pretty much dedicating the last few years exclusively to not just the study of the theory, but the practice of it. We've read the text so many times now, we've done the lessons many times. We both lean very heavily on our inner teacher, the inner guide, to help us better understand the essence of these teachings. It is all we talk about. It is how we approach anything that is going on in our lives that appears to be conflictive or difficult. And today's topic especially, we've talked a great deal, Alberto and I, about this whole theme of willingness. It's one of those themes that is consistently spoken about in the course. And it's actually a fascinating topic, and I love it. And we speak a lot about this idea of my little willingness. And so I'm trying to think about, okay, how do I share this? How do I convey the meaning of what this little willingness means? I sat with Spirit, as I usually do before any talk like this, and I felt guided to share with you a personal experience that actually happened not long ago in our lives. And by the way, I'm going to be speaking in terminology where maybe I say the father or the son, or more masculine sounding terminology, but really it's referring to all genders, and it includes all, it excludes no one. So feel free to substitute the word that best suits you. And so not long ago, a couple of months ago, a friend contacted us, quite distraught, and talking about ending their life. They felt stuck. Nothing seemed to be happening in their life. There didn't seem to be any clear direction for what they should be doing with their time or with their life. This person, I will say, has witnessed and experienced endless miracles in ways big and small. They are essentially a walking spark of light, this person. They have read the Course and other spiritual teachings. They practice the lessons every single day. They have had moments of just absolute knowing and euphoria when everything was just flowing, and they could see the joy, and they could feel God's presence, and they could see it all back reflected. They could see it reflected back to them in so many ways. And then there were moments like this one when their world just seemed utterly devoid of any hope or of any joy. And it just felt that it wasn't changing in any meaningful or permanent way. And their attitude really was like, well, what does it matter anyways? This world is all illusion, like the Course and other spiritual teachings talk about. It's not real. I'm not a body, so it doesn't matter. I'll just leave this body and I'll come back again and try it in a different body. Maybe things will be different, which is very logical reasoning if you think about it, but also no better example of ego and separation thinking that you can find. And so, what did we do? What did I do? What did Alberto do? Well, there's only one thing to do, really, which is to keep practicing what it is that we are learning. And so I was actually on the couch with a video call with our friend, and Alberto was nearby, and I could see that he was listening. And with just kind of eye contact and raising, we would just raise our arms. This is kind of our language of how we communicate, of, we are going to raise this, we are going to give this. I understood, I knew that he was going to be supporting whatever this effort is before us, and doing what I'm about to describe to you in many steps. But what was happening was actually happening instantaneously. It was happening in the present moment. But I'm going to try and break it down to kind of take you through what the thinking was that led to the just instantaneous decision. And so the first step, which is the first step I talked about here, is always I call on what the Course calls the voice for God. It's also called by many things. It's called the Holy Spirit, called the Great Comforter, the inner guide, that loyal friend and companion. They're all terms. They're all terms to try and describe that infinite loving presence that is with us. And to me, he is my most trusted advisor, my most trusted friend. And sometimes he takes the form of Jesus. I kind of imagine that it is him who is standing with me, but mostly it is a feeling. It's a feeling of just being accompanied. And so I invite that presence in, even though it's there all the time, I invite it in and I ask it to be front and center. And in my mind, I say, I'm not sure what's happening here, but I take 100% responsibility for this situation being in my experience. I take responsibility for the error in my mind, in my thinking, that has somehow fabricated this scenario that I'm looking at right now. And also responsibility for the fact that my mind is the source of what I am seeing in front of me as an effect. I will not look away from this, but I will look upon this with you. And so outwardly, imagine this. Outwardly, I'm listening to my friend, I'm listening to the words, but inwardly, I am focused on this inner communion and on this communication with spirit. I can feel that presence, and I just feel comforted. I know it's going to be okay. And I just know I'm going to have exactly the right words that I need to be able to say that are going to be perfect for this situation. And so in my mind, I'm continuing and I'm saying, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what fears I have, what beliefs, what guilt, what resentments in me that are playing out in this image that I'm looking at before my eyes. But I do know that they are false. I do know that there are errors in my thinking, in my perceptions, in my interpretations of events. That's all that my eyes are showing me, by the way. That's what they're reporting back to me in the form of this particular situation. I'm looking at an image. I'm not looking at what is real. In fact, this image of the distraught friend is actually impeding me being able to see what is real. And what is real is my friend's holiness, perfection, purity, innocence, magnificence, radiance, which is what God created. This image that I'm looking at is impeding me from seeing the perfection that God created, which also tells me that I have failed to recognize it, not only in them, but in me as well. And so that means I must be thinking with this mind that believes that it is separate from God, from all of creation. Somehow my attention, my awareness, whether conscious or unconscious, must be on the past. Again, something from my past, some resentment, some grievance, something that I've held on to, maybe some anger, some shame, some guilt from some experience that I had and that I think is still real, that is haunting me. I somehow must have held on to that and brought it here to this present moment. And it's playing out in front of me in this form. I am willing to have this error healed, corrected in me, in my friend, and in all of creation. I am willing, with you, my most trusted friend, I am willing to see holiness here and to exchange all of this apparent signs of conflict, to exchange that for peace, for your peace, God's peace, and to exchange what is false and fabricated in my thinking with the truth, which is the truth of our oneness and our love for one another as brothers, and of course for God, for our Father, for our Creator. I am willing. I am listening. Be you in charge. I will follow your guidance. I am here and I love you. Now, I would say this first step, this kind of pause, rather than just jumping into action mode and let me tell you how to fix this is the most critical pause, the most critical step. Why? Because I'm basically identifying the error at its source in here, not up there in my mind. And I'm stopping what would likely be the greatest temptation, which is the temptation to identify with this situation, to be afraid for our friend, to look at them as someone who is weak, who is vulnerable, who is unstable, and who is totally capable of doing what they're talking about. In other words, it's the temptation in course terminology to make this situation real and not remember that as real and as fearful as it appears, it still remains not real and not true. How can I say that with certainty? Well, let's look at the situation. Does the situation reflect any peace, love, joy? Does it inspire any of those qualities? Do I see radiance and light and joy coming from my friend? No. Well, then, it's not of God. It is of illusion. Because God creates only what is eternal, what is timeless, what is pure and whole and loving and holy like Himself. God's creations must reflect that and only that. And God's Son, His child, His extension, is like the Father and creates like Him. Because the Father, God, the creator, the source, gave His Son, His creation, all of Himself. He extended all that He is into His loving creation. I mean, I can't even imagine that. God, all of God is in me. God gave all of Himself, itself in me, to me. I can't even understand what that means. I'm still learning how to accept that as the truth of who I am. And so when I look at the situation in front of me, I go, well, does the situation reflect any of this? Well, obviously the answer is no. And that's why it's not real. It is projection and it is illusion. But it does serve a very important purpose. Just because it's illusion and not real doesn't mean that it cannot be used for your awakening. It's an opportunity. It's a wonderful opportunity for healing, to recognize the errors in my thinking that are still there, and to liberate, to free both myself, my friend, and all of creation from these false ideas that I keep projecting outward and that are preventing me from seeing them truly. And to celebrate that, to celebrate the truth of what God created, to celebrate that holiness, and to give praise and gratitude to our Creator for creating that perfection, that holiness. Because seeing that holiness, being in that state of reverence for what God created, that is the closest that I'm ever going to get in this world of form to actually knowing God. That's why it's so important to be willing to look at what God created and not at just the fabricated images that my eyes are showing me. And that's why every situation, whether it's this one that I'm talking about here or any situation that you may be living through that appears to be conflictive and threatening, is an opportunity for the weaver of the illusion, the dreamer of the dream, yours truly, to liberate his brothers, my brothers, and to finally know peace. Now, I'm not saying this is easy, by the way, and it's definitely not easy to be in this way of thinking and this way of being, because you know what? I'm there, I'm sitting with my friend, and I'm hearing their cries. You know, my eyes are showing me their tears and all of the physical symptoms, you know, that want to convince me that this is real and I have to act now to save my friend. It wants to pull me into that rabbit hole with them. Now, understand me, I'm not saying that there is no room for action or for response. There's definitely a place for all of that. But if I don't pause first and I invite the Holy Spirit or my friend to lead, what is going to happen? Well, all of my memories and all of my past experiences of what I have been taught to do will step in. First, commiserate with them. Oh, you poor thing. Yeah, you're right. It's awful. I feel so terrible for you. You're right. Things really are bad. It's true. Your situation is just unbelievably horrendous. It's true. Nobody in your family gets you. Nobody wants to support you. Nobody even wants to understand what you're going through. They're just leaving you there. They're really just, they're jerks. You get the idea. So on. So the first instinct is commiserate, make this so real. And then second, what I have been taught to do, you take charge. My past upbringing says, well, it's up to you to take care of her because that's what a good person does. You see suffering of any kind, it's up to you to fix it. It's up to you to save them. You're strong. Well, they don't know any better right now, but you do. Especially if you say that you're someone who's spiritual and you believe that God is love. Well, God love wouldn't let them suffer. Do something. Because if you don't, and they do end up taking their life, well, then it's going to be your fault. It's on your hands because you could have stepped in and stopped it, but you didn't. And you don't want now that guilt to haunt you, do you? So with this situation, what am I really dealing with? I'm confronting all of these ideas. I'm confronting all of the guilt of what happens if I don't step in and I help someone and I save someone. But at the same time, I also have to be brutally honest with myself, okay? I have to recognize all of the emotions that this obligation to help others is triggering in me. Of course, nobody wants to look there because, I'm noble. I don't have those, I don't have those feelings of attack or guilt towards anybody else. But I do have to admit, if I were to be truly honest, that there is a part of me that actually resents them. That's actually angry with them. That's saying, how dare you put me in this position after all of the hours upon hours that I've already spent talking to you, helping you in other situations, see another way, having you say, yeah, you understand, you're committed, you're working on it, you're going to do it. And then I get this, all of this stuff that's come up, all of this stuff that's hidden, all of this is what I need to look at. This is what needs to be healed. All of these ideas that I have of obligation and salvation and sacrifice, all of this guilt and the anger and the resentment, this is what I am seeing in this situation. And all of it is what I'm invited to correct. Remember what I said earlier. What my eyes are showing me, what I am looking at, is not real. And I think this is the hardest part of the practice, honestly. To look at this situation as if I were looking at a movie or as if I were in a dream. I have to remember that only love is real, that my brother, my sister is holy and sacred and powerful and light-filled and safe with God here and now. I have to practice this vision or this understanding of my brother, no matter what my eyes are showing me, because eyes deceive. Eyes were made to deceive, actually, and to look upon images that try to support the core false idea that I am separate from my creator, I am separate from my brothers and sisters, and from all of creation. However, my eyes, my hands, my body, my very existence, my very life, willingly given to the Holy Spirit, to God, can be used for another purpose, which is the purpose that God or Spirit has for my life. I can choose to willingly give it to God to direct so that I can fulfill what is my part in His plan for my waking up from this dream that I've put myself into and for the awakening of my world with me. This is what I practice. This is the Christ vision that so many teachings talk about. This is the vision of my friend that I hold on to as I'm speaking to them, as I'm listening, as I'm observing, as I'm interacting and remembering. This is all a dream and I am the dreamer. And by the way, this dreamer, any dreamer, really totally resents being told that they're dreaming, right? What? What do you mean? This is not real? You're the one that's dreaming. If you don't think that this is real, come on, you wake up. This is real. All of your ideas, those are what's false. And I think that's the biggest obstacle. That really is the biggest obstacle to awakening. This dreamer, the dreamer just not wanting to recognize that they are dreaming and resisting the call to wake up and to have these thoughts corrected and to return to the love, which is our home. So what happened with our friend? Well, as I was inwardly speaking and tuning into spirit and willingly giving over all of these ideas that I was telling you about, I was given the right words to speak. I was given metaphors which I had never really considered before, but which seemed to really resonate with them. I felt a love, truly a love flowing from me towards them. I felt love. There wasn't that feeling of, I need to rush, that, I need to get off this call because this is uncomfortable. There was no anxiety. There was really, there was a stillness, a calm that surrounded me. I felt a confidence as I was speaking because I knew that they were receiving exactly what they needed to hear. I'm tuning into that voice. That voice is speaking for love. And this is what I want to extend to her, them, is that love, and to let love speak through me. And I could see that Alberto was doing that same work as I was doing, that he's in the same movie with me. And, our friend eventually returned. They returned to peace. And we left them, in the hands of that love, knowing that love was actually comforting and guiding them in ways that our physical responses and our physical presence alone could never do. And when Alberto and I spoke about this afterwards, he said, the situation really was like a movie, showing him specifically, though, his lack of faith. It showed him his moments of struggle and confusion too. Those moments when you know that everything is right and flowing, you believe, you have no doubt. And then the next thing you know, you forget. You're down kind of into you've forgotten everything and you go back to all the things that you used to do. And so it revealed that to me as well, of course. I have to admit that. And so for that, we give thanks. We give thanks to this experience because it allows both of us to liberate all of these ideas from this creation in which we find ourselves. And most interestingly, a little while after our conversation happened, our friend found themselves doing the exact same thing that we did with them for another friend who was going through a rough patch as well. And so they found themselves repeating and doing exactly what it is that we did with them. And in so doing, they just reinforced the truth of it in them. So this is a lot of steps, telling you a lot of things to literally what was happening in that instant. It just happened in that instant. And all that I needed to do for all of this healing to take place was to say, I am willing. That's my little willingness. That's all I have to offer, nothing more. But I have to be the one to initiate. I have to be the one to say, I am willing. I am willing to see the truth here. And Spirit, God, will step in and take that little willingness of mine and will add to it all of the might and all of the power and all of the grace and the will of God. Spirit will multiply that little offering of mine and will use it in all of creation, not just in this situation. And this is something that actually comforts me a great deal. A lot of times when I think, I'm not doing enough, I should be doing more. This is something that comforts me a great deal, knowing that Spirit takes my little offering, amplifies it, and then uses it everywhere, uses it in all situations, in all universes, in all dimensions, in the past, in the future, in things that happen, in things yet to come. He will offer this truth that I'm willing to receive to any mind that he knows from his vision, from where he stands, will benefit from it. But all he asks is that I be willing, give it to him, and let him do the rest. And I love that. But then ego will say, no way, there is no way that this little willingness is going to change anything. Ego will now bring you scenario after scenario, situation after situation, form after form, to convince you to stay in fear, to stay in the sense of dread or the sense of anger or not enough. Basically, to stay in separation from your brothers and the truth of who we are as one, to try and convince you that you really are separate from everyone, that you really are alone, and that you really have to be afraid of the world out there that is filled with people who are so different from you. And above all else, ego wants to convince you that you have betrayed God, that God is somehow not happy with you, that you actually do deserve, punishment, and that you will be punished, and that somehow you're not worthy of his love because you abandoned the greatest love, and he will not take you back. What a terrible web of lies it weaves. What distorted images and figures it kind of hobbles together and then brings to you and says, look, this is real, this is true. You are weak, you are small, you are alone, you need to be afraid. All of it meant to keep the dreamer dreaming, distracted from looking at the source of these ideas so that they can be healed and freed, not letting love come in and to lead us back home. And so now, as we head into our quiet time, I would like to offer you some words of willingness that you can take into your day to remind you that very little is being asked of you in order to awaken, in order to understand, and in order to move through this world with ease, with peace, and with grace. To me, in addition to the words, thank you, I love you, I am sorry, which I think many of you will recognize as the foundations of Ho'oponopono, another forgiveness practice. In addition to those words, the words I am willing are mighty words that can truly transform you. All right. As the words that we have just shared settle, I invite you to simply enter for a moment into stillness. Allow that loving friend, that loving presence that is always with you. Just simply allow that to come into your full awareness. If you wish for it to take the form of a teacher, a master, an angel, any form that allows you to truly feel at peace and to truly feel loved, allow that image to come into your mind. And let us allow these words of willingness to simply enter. I am willing to see things differently. I am willing to look at my deepest fears and darkest secrets with my loving companion. I am willing to see them in the light of his love. I am willing to accept that I have made a terrible mistake about who I am and that I have been merely wrong. I am willing. I am willing to have my errors corrected. I am willing to let the truth replace all the ideas that I have about who I am, who my brother is, who God is. I'm willing to learn and to question every value that I hold. I am willing to consider that I am sleeping, dreaming a dream of being far from home, far from the love and safety of my father, mother, creator, alone and afraid. I'm willing to learn what is real and what is a dream. I am willing to wake up. I am willing to follow the guide who knows exactly what I need to do to wake up. Above all else, I am willing to hear his voice and listen to his plan for my part in waking up. I am willing to step back and let him lead the way. I'm willing to see what God created and to look beyond the shadows of what appear to be bodies and situations to the light eternal beyond them. I am willing to see the light in myself. I am willing to accept the truth. I am willing to hear the call of heaven and to go home and bring my brothers with me. I am willing. And so it is.